Love the scripture reading. Well done. Proverb 22:29. The person who excels in his work will stand before kings. Love that. For all the right reasons today, I want to encourage you and motivate you to travel the path of excellence in living out the Lord's righteousness. For all the right reasons, I want to prod you to let your love for God and others keep raising the bar of godly living in your own Christian walk so that others are motivated to know and love God in their own life. But I know that the spirit of excellence, the desire to give God better than your best, is just not common in culture, and therefore also maybe in the church. Humans are in the church. That's what makes it up. The devil knows how we think, and our thoughts hinder us from even desiring to give God what we know we could, much less give God more than what we currently are. Each of us are on our own maturing journey, and that's something very important to remember. Each of us are on our own maturing journey. And I think that those of you know me well enough that I praise all good signs of any individual's personal growth. If whatever a person is doing is growth for them, great, great. No comparisons. Encourage all the good. I hope you know that about me. But I don't know if you know just about me from the sermons that you hear, but inwardly I vilify the willful practice of habits and excuses that only encourage the justification of us withholding giving God our best. Such is my daily struggle. That's why I choose to be hardest on myself. And you're welcome perhaps for that. But I don't want that to stunt your growth. I know that people are just too judgmental out there. And they will try putting their standards upon you. I don't want to do that. But we must ask ourselves, am I truly giving God my best and motivated by all the right reasons to do so, to just glorify Him, to grow in Him? I do hope this odd lesson has its intended effect for you. In my own personal experience of church culture, the congregations I grew up in, I have just never seen a congregation where purely love-motivated, non-judgmental, individual excellence was the norm, the average standard. I just never saw that. It was always held out as an ideal that people can individually hope to choose to, pursue on their own, but it was never the standard. I guess I've never seen heaven on earth. But Christians are humans. They're striving for heaven, right? And yet we are still too easily misguided. When a congregation's average bar, and every congregation has one, is that a bad thing to have an average bar? No, of course not inherently. But when it is set by mediocrity, that which is commonplace becomes the common denominator, and that then becomes the standard by which we equate our own practice of Christianity. Now, is that so bad? Well, what happens next? Once a person gets comfortable with stagnation, that average bar only gradually decreases and lowers. And I think a fair comparison would be education's effect on national patriotism. Likewise, in religion, Christians will gradually know Jesus less, love Jesus less, serve Him less, imitate Him less, and be less righteous. Life teaches us that if you're not growing, you're dying. And so to prevent death, spiritual death, preachers come along with a sermon on how to give God your all and your best. But if the world's influence is already too deep in too many hearts, that type of a lesson is either not taken seriously or even taken offensively. Preparing for this lesson was a fun challenge, and it will be filled with bad advice. Just prepare for that. And I have a disclaimer or two because of that. I do not want to appear to be condescending in any way unnecessarily. And I do not want to appear to be irreverent, because I will have to be mildly sarcastic and facetious. So I do pray that this lesson has its intended effect for you. If you have been content in any area of your life with spiritual mediocrity and stagnation, I hope to inspire you to get out, to rise above that rut And if others have been effectively used by the devil to cause you to get knocked off the track of personal excellence in your own walk, I hope to inspire you and encourage you to again get back up and excel for the Lord's cause, to run that race with your all on your own individual growth. And also, I have to use some illustrations in this lesson. So, as was kind of implied earlier, if you're listening closely, traditional practices of showing devotion may not be God's law. There's usually a reason for what becomes tradition, and I want to focus on the reason more than the tradition, and I appreciate Ron saying that. But I also know that a devoted heart, a heart that loves God and a heart that desires and cares about the brethren, will do or seek to do that which is within one's awareness and capability that he knows would be pleasing to both God and brethren. And I also know that hearts that are just not wholly devoted to God, or just, not yet healed from some hurt, or not being properly prodded to do more good, I know that all of those circumstances, those people, regardless of results, are the same. They just will do only what they want to do, which is average. But Scripture reveals that not all average conduct is righteous in God's eyes. That's why we need to be cautious about that word average. So I want to prod you to examine your love for God and to grow in Him in every way and every day, and to have a passion for good works. I will play or speak the part of two characters today, and you might want to call this gentleman from the perspective of just a guest visitor coming in, Brother Lukewarm or Brother Average Joe, whichever one works for you. I like lukewarm because it is describing the person first. So let's let that sarcastic tone a little bit begin. Okay, so I walked into the church building today and I saw the outline. Oh no, I bet this is another lesson on how my current life is just not pleasing to God. No wonder I don't come too often. Because I like having my feelings, and my friends convince me that I'm a good Christian just the way that I am. In fact, whenever that I get the feeling others are challenging that, I just insinuate that they are the bad Christians for misjudging my heart. The preacher has a pass, I guess, because it's his job. But I already know this lesson is not for me today. Whenever I was here last time, whenever it was, I don't remember. But I loved it when the preacher said, it was about obedience, I think. But I remember what he said. Salvation can't be earned by good works. Oh, I don't remember anything else, but I just love that part. And all that I seem to remember is that I agreed with that. You know what? I agree. I'm frankly happy to hide in the crowd, to keep a low profile, and to not let anyone bug me. I even daydream a little bit. Wouldn't it be great to have a whole lesson that just praises average? Think about it. Daydream with me. That no one ever has a guilt trip during that whole sermon time. That everyone just feels free to keep doing whatever they want the way that they're doing and still have heaven in the bag. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I misread that title. Let me look at this again. Not remarkably, could it be that he's actually going to help me live an unremarkably average Christian life? All right, I'll take notes on this one. In fact, I probably could have helped him write this lesson. After all, God's kingdom is made up of so many average people, right? This whole concept of personal excellence, yeah, some people try to, do it for show and they try to get all the praise, but that's really quite overrated. Who can ever always truly give their best without being burned out, or judged, misused, and by others discouraged by their own shortcomings? Come on. Yeah, the more I think about it, there may not be as much good work getting done, but at least I think that everyone would be happier. I think the church would be better if all this talk of excellence and strife for growth just didn't happen. So I choose on my own. I'm choosing today, no matter what the preacher says, to enjoy just living every day, hoping that God gives me a passing grade based on some gracious curve. I mean, after all, God is a God of grace, isn't He? Oh, I see the preacher is about to start. Maybe this lesson will do some good. Now on the scene, preacher Smooth Talker. Good morning, brethren. I tell you what, let's just get started with our unusual lesson today. There's so many of us here, like was mentioned earlier. We don't want you to feel alone or segregated or detached, and we want you to feel a part. So to help you relate to so many other believers, I'm going to suggest just 11 points for you to put into practice, and you can know that you in that way identify with so many of your brethren. Number one, equate Christianity with just going to church services. I'm telling you what, that's a good baseline these days, isn't it? Brethren, I know you're probably confused hearing me say something like this, because we all know how it's been through the generations before us. They used Hebrews 10:25 to basically browbeat us with the proof text, to guilt trip us into thinking that we have to attend each and every service. Now, folks, I know that we've gotten smarter than that. I know that you have learned that Sunday night and Wednesday night is tradition, and that's not exactly what that verse is talking about. I've never tried to mislead you, but I know how you feel when others insinuate that you're not even saved because of lack of attendance, regardless of circumstance. They're not even considerate of what you were going through. It's amazing that more people haven't been tempted to just prove a point and not show up at all. But at least attendance today. Think about all of us who did show up today and viewing. Think about how much good it is doing. It does some good, sure. And I know that some people talk about verse 24, right before verse 25, and try to tell you that salvation and maturation and glorification should motivate us to fellowship and serve and study with our brethren far beyond those set times. But come on, let's get real. Who does that these days? It's a different culture. If that sounds too much to you, don't worry, don't be uncomfortable. That's not our focus today. We just want you to know. And we want you to feel right now great from having a great choice indeed. That fact that you chose to be here today. Thank you so much. But you want to hear something? I'll tell you a little secret. Society these days thinks that average attendance is exceptional. So there you go. God must be happy when we are just going to church, because that helps the world see that we are good Christians in His eyes. Yes, sir. So, with how hostile the world is towards Christianity, I'll just be honest with you. I'll tell you what, you play it safe, keep a low profile, and you'll get to attend more church services longer. And brother lukewarm, I can't believe I just heard the preacher say that. I mean, why did he even include these verses? Maybe he didn't, because usually while the preacher is talking, I'm doing anything else. But this time I'm actually reading the verses as he's talking, and I went to see if they supported this mindset. And they actually imply the opposite. Only those who want to excel at glorifying and loving God will try to put Christ's teachings into practice, even those hard commands like in Ephesians, everywhere, not just within the building at a set time of the week, but everywhere. It's a life you live. Even I can see that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd like to hear the opposite as if it were true. But when you hear it as truth, you kind of know it's not. Okay, I think he's become one of those ear-tickle preachers. He maybe just doesn't want to mention these verses because he knows most won't search the scriptures like those Bereans. They will just settle for just going to church, just like I have or am. Oh, I see he's ready for point two. Point two. Just do only what is proven. You absolutely must. I mean, because come on, people, the Bible is the standard, right? Can I get an amen on that? The Bible is the standard. Absolutely it is. Brethren, it's true. Too many people are biting too many self-made rules on us. Amen on that one too. But the Bible is the standard. Oh, I know its principles are boldly taught, and I know in some way it talks about every aspect of our life, but the Bible really deals with the heart, doesn't it? There's just so much, I have to admit, so much that the Bible does not seem to specifically addressed in our lives today. Oh, but please don't get me wrong, because I know that when moral and ethical laws and limits and traditions are lifted, then people go morally all over the place, because discernment is not always their strong suit. They just know what they should and shouldn't do, but maybe not know why they need to do it or not do it. So I tell you what, I'm just not encouraging you to go wild, but I can't deny the Bible doesn't mention many things to the questions that people ask about when they want to know how to be just good enough to still go to heaven. For example, I can't bind on you some rule when you ask me regarding something like how much is too much, how little is too little, how short is too short, how often is too often, how revealing is too revealing, how angry is too angry, how friendly is too friendly. I mean, come on, people are so different, and God sees our uniqueness. God sees every one of us. He knows our heart. Lukewarm is going nuts. He said, wait. I can't believe what I'm hearing, because don't get me wrong, I like the sound of being able just to be in right standing with God, to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it, the way I want to do it. But I'm also looking at these verses, and they don't seem to match what he is saying. It's maybe some places may be specific, but these are like implying that grace should cause us to want to have nothing to do with sin, that grace should make us want to just give our all to God and not ask where those lines are, just leave the line behind. I mean, even I'm kind of getting this. And as I'm looking at these verses, I see that message is to the open heart maybe more clear than maybe I was believing it to be. I did wonder why he mentioned Luke chapter 7, though. Luke chapter 7, I mean, I understand this idea about the overly critical, self-righteous Pharisee. I mean, because I know a lot of people who think that they're better than everybody else. I mean, I've never thought that, but I can't deny when I actually am. But what did that woman have to do with this point about the woman? Because the point is, do only what is proven you absolutely must. And this woman, it was actually by her love prompted and praised by God for doing far more than what the law required. Oh, I see. There it is again. It does seem that those who want to excel in glorifying and loving God will try to surrender to his will and just go all out in it. While the rest, just like the majority, they settle like me, like I have been. Only doing what the preacher proves I absolutely have to do. Be quiet, conscience. Preacher Smooth Talker is about to use another point. Busy, busy, busy to make it all look good. I tell you, we have busy lives, and it's not always pleasant, is it? You want to know how to make it all look good? I tell you what, everyone loves sprinkles. So sprinkle spirituality around everything else. Sprinkle it all over everything else. It's like icing on a cake. You may not have a good cake. It may not be much of a cake, but everyone knows it's about the icing. So put a lot of that on there, and then the sprinkles, we know that just attracts it, makes it look so good. Put a lot of those on there. Brethren, God knows our obligations and how busy we are. He also knows we need rest, and he also knows we need time of recreation. I'm never going to guilt someone into inconveniently volunteering for church functions or to have some lengthy period of study time beyond those 5 minutes a day. Wow, if you're doing that, great. I'm never going to encourage someone to buy less or buy cheaper so that you have more to contribute for good causes. That makes you a more cheerful giver. But folks, listen. When Jesus says to seek him first, don't stress. Just remember this advice. Sprinkle it. Sprinkle him all over everything else. And sprinkles are so small. You know what happens? All those sprinkles cover all the gaps. They actually fill up all the gaps. And that's all you see. That's what God sees when he's down looking. So yes, sirree, when you read Matthew 6:33, just make sure you are aware that the Lord is still there on his throne. And whenever you think about him, you will then feel like he is first in your heart. And over time, you will just appreciate him maybe more and more. Yes, so here's some advice. Before any decision that you make, be like most average Christians. You know you're going to make it anyway, so say, Lord, I'm about to do this, so please just bless this decision of mine, not influence, but bless, and you will feel lots better. Maybe even tell God how grateful you are to be so patient with you, as he knows that you will do your best over time to seek him more, but right after you graduate. And then it gets really busy, but he knows that you'll seek him more even after that, right after you get that job, and after you get married, because he'll be the foundation for your home, and then right after that for your kids, and then when the kids leave home, right after that, you'll get settled in retirement. And you really have a lot of time then to seek the Lord first and study his will. I mean, God is mindful of you in this whole journey. He looked down and he saw all those sprinkles all along the way. Okay. Conscience. What's happening here? I really just heard the preacher speak the words and explain exactly how I've convinced myself that I'm okay with God for doing really whatever I've wanted to do my whole life and not really letting Jesus influence my whole life. But it does seem, as I look at these verses, that Jesus does mean for his righteousness to impact every aspect of my life, to put his kingdom first in absolutely everything. And that means that then everything I do would be a glory to God because it's for him instead of me. I'm beginning to see a pattern that I should take note of what's average and then just do the opposite. Okay, what else is he about to say? I mean, quite frankly, I'm not really listening to the preacher much anymore. He said, overextend yourself financially because working is good and that'll sure keep you busy. Okay, except for a few statistics that he shared and a few jokes. I didn't listen to anything else he said on this one. But it was, I think, humorous when he said everyone's in debt, working hard to pay off what they bought with money they didn't have to impress people that they probably didn't even like. And I thought that was funny. But I know from my rearing that the Bible condemns things like covetousness and greed and materialism and discontentment. And sure, I'm guilty of all of those, but not to some extreme, but maybe a little. But I could see how in others it would be causes that could easily lead them to otherwise avoidable debt. But he probably doesn't want flack from the people who support him. So I'll just read these verses while he's talking. Yep, just like I thought. They imply that only those who want to excel at glorifying and loving God will financially, according to what they've purposed in their heart, budget Jesus' work first. And I know lately I've just been caring more about simply getting whatever I want when I want it. And frankly, my heart, unintentioned by the preacher probably today, but my heart's being pricked and I'm uneasy hearing all this instruction over how to just be average. But nonetheless, what else is he going to say? Point 5, when you're struck, strike back. He told some story about how he was in the parking lot and he was just getting onto the road. He was about to actually, but he had to stop and tend to a few things, and a few second opportunity opened up for him to get out, but the person behind just was wanting to remind him that he now could go out, and he gave him a little honk. And then the response was, well, I'll honk back because that shows you're being inconsiderate and impatient. Well, that just shows them what they need to be. And then he did it because he said there was no church members around. He didn't think anyone would see. But then he saw that was a church member in the other car honking that it's time for you to go. He said, well, now I know who they are. I've wondered, lukewarm is thinking, I wonder how the preacher is going to get around these verses about vengeance belongs to the Lord and take the suffering of the wrong for his name's sake, and then love and pray for your enemies. He didn't even address those verses. He just said it's our instinct to react in the same way and to not really say you're sorry, but he just says to God, say you're sorry each and every time. That'll do it. If I didn't mishear what he said, he said that some people even need to be punished or else they'll never know the error of their ways and change. And I think he likes being that person, apparently. I think Jesus and Peter and Paul did not ignore the matter like he is today. Only those who want to excel at glorifying and loving God will overcome evil with good and strive to even submit to others even after they've been wronged. I know that's not average, but even I can see that that's what the Lord is saying. Then he continued his lesson and said, let's just be average today and relate to so many people. He said, never confess to close brethren your temptations for help in conquering them. Now, folks, I don't even know what he said. He said, he did explain James chapter 5:16 a little bit. He said that it wasn't about coming forward. That was a traditional act and sometimes an expression of this idea. But he says it's really talking about seeking mature brethren who will help you overcome the sin by confession and prayer. But I was shocked how average he chose to be when he said he was going to ignore that command for the same reason everyone else does. That he was going to keep struggling on the inside with all that shame and guilt and bitterness and resentment and all the more sin that causes, rather than to excel and just break free from the enslaving sin. All because, now here's what he said, people are too nosy and too untrustworthy. Well, he's right on that. I know I shouldn't just trust anyone. But it seems that God is giving us a way to break free beyond just the forgiveness, but the free from the temptation. And that does sound good. Only those who want to excel then at glorifying and loving God want to overcome that sin and will shed the light on their inner selves by confession and prayer with those that they trust. The Bible is getting across its clear message. I don't know what the preacher's doing today. Number 7, never say sorry and forgive reservedly. The preacher made some interesting points that most people don't. He said that people need to learn the consequences of their wrongs, and they also a relationship is restored when there is sorrow over the wrong and a genuine desire to repent and seek reconciliation. He nailed that point. But I don't think he talked about what to do or how to be right with God when others are in the wrong and stay there happily. That's more of a heart issue, right? I may not remember all the verses. I may not know all the verses, but I remember way back in Sunday school, we were taught to not hold a grudge or harbor hate and let the Lord forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us in Matthew chapter 6. Wait a minute. Why are all these verses coming to my mind? It's almost like I'm having to preach to myself today because I don't have a clue what type of lesson this is. But I see from these verses that only those who want to excel at loving and glorifying God will offer forgiveness and say that they're sorry, even when it wasn't their fault, even when forgiveness is not offered, and won't hold a grudge, even when there is no change of behavior. Wow, that is exceptional. But most will settle for average. That's just the way of it. Then he said, point 8, never change your opinion about anything. Now, I know that sounds weird, but what am I talking about? He then explained what he's talking about. Now, I couldn't believe when I read these verses and I heard them so mistaught. With every point, with every explanation, they just got worse. James chapter 1, verse 19, he read it. He said, be quick to hear and slow to speak. But he said, you know what? We just need to be respectful of others and let them finish talking before we talk so that we don't interrupt. That's rude. And then he said in 2 Peter 1, 5 through 8 about the growing in the grace and knowledge of God. He says, you're on the right path now, so don't let anyone change you. He says chapter 18 or chapter 15 and 18 of the book of Acts shows people who were convinced that they were right, but now that they were corrected and they were in fact in the wrong. But folks, listen, that's talking about salvation. But now that you're in Christ, you're on the right path. So don't let anyone change your views after coming to Christ. And that's how he explained those verses. I would try to discuss with him that that's not what those verses mean, but he's already said he's not willing to listen to another person's view, which is quite average these days. It seems that only those who want to excel at loving and glorifying God know that the truth has nothing to hide. They're on the side of truth and they're not yet there to have a full comprehension of God's will for their life and are on the process of growth. So they are willing to discuss and even respectfully be with and talk with those who have different views and are willing to change their opinions when proven wrong. But the rest will stay unremarkably average, never listening to anyone with whom they disagree. Oh, the conscience is kicking in again. I know, well, I know conscience. I don't even talk to people who I know disagree with me. That's what I've been doing. Well, the preacher continues. Point 9, never talk to anyone about spiritual things. You know, the preacher said that it's average for people today to feel odd about Jesus outside the building. So we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. We want them to feel welcome to come to Christ in every respect. We'll make it a super easy path for them. So just keep Bible talk in Bible school. And besides, they know where we are. If they want to learn about Jesus, they can come find us. Don't be disturbed about Matthew chapter 10 when you read those because, don't let someone use that. We have responsibilities. And surely Jesus wasn't thinking about the political climate of our day. I wish I could, and let me switch. Lukewarm then says, I wish I could believe that Jesus would still confess me before the Father on that day because I see how silent I've been. I've so often not spoken his name or stood up for truth when necessary. I see that only those who want to excel at loving and glorifying God desire to talk with others about spiritual things for their own growth and for the hope of bringing others to forgiveness. I feel like I'm convincing myself to start making waves, but in a good way. But it's funny because the next point that the preacher had was, don't get out of the boat. He actually said, don't get out of the boat. He says, church, so many focus on Peter's faith, but I have a different perspective for you. He could have saved himself some of the humiliation from nearly drowning in front of the Lord because of fear. Besides, Jesus also here protected those who were staying where they were, right? So some leaps of faith might be testing God, and we know what the Bible says about that. So, yes, just play it safe. Stay in the boat. Be average. At least the one talent man who hid his talent knew exactly where his Lord's property was. Wait a minute. Luke's warm mind is no longer boiling, actually. Now he says, did I just hear an attempt to paint Peter as a bad example and the one talent man as a good example? I mean, I know these accounts. Jesus granted Peter permission and power to walk to him on the water. I think that's the focus. Because of his faith, and the fearful, lazy servant was rebuked and kicked out of the master's presence. I think that's the focus. I know most people will be unremarkably average and play it safe, but I can't deny that those who want to excel seem to want to glorify and love God by getting out of the boat, even if it means getting closer to Jesus. That's what it's about. I know I'm preaching but to myself, but that is exactly what I know I need to do. Conscience, you've been preaching to me hard today. But the preacher's about done, so let's see what else he has to say. And to conclude our simple lesson to make you relate to so many people, I want you to accept being average, because you'll never be called out for it. Think about it. It's the truth, brethren. The average path is virtually free from being verbally attacked, castigated, derided, mocked, persecuted, or anyone oppressing you, because not only do the harder workers these days become the targets for the attack, but the easy goers who are getting all the petting and the praise. So following this pattern will not only, well, it won't lead someone to Christ probably, but at least you can essentially do anything you want and get away with it. Think about it. If you're in a group that has obviously been self-defined as never wanting to make others feel threatened or challenged by what you do or say, or uncomfortable or upset by expressing your beliefs on the Christian principles, then it's not likely elders will visit or be called to visit and reproof and redirect your thinking to be more refined, and also your behavior, because that process seems to only apply to that minority who want to excel. So just accept being average is a lot easier. I guess this might want to be the preacher's last lesson there. I don't know, but my conscience has been speaking louder than the preacher's voice through the speakers. I'm reflecting on my own baptism back in my younger days, and how that I've not been giving honor to God by how I've lived. I've not been comfortable with this by comparison to the verses that I've been reading from the Bible. I've been average. And I know that only those who want to excel at glorifying and loving God will, well, excel by loving God and desiring on his or her own personal journey to excel in service and love and glorifying and doing good deeds and so much more than I have been doing. Now, I know the majority won't commit to excellence. But after this sermon, I'm resolved to start trying in each moment to be what I think is my best, and to make sure that in anything I do or try to do that the Lord knows he has my whole heart. And that's what's motivating my efforts. And then I heard the preacher say, "Brethren, I hope you haven't heard a thing I've been saying today. I actually hope you resolve to give God your all, because he has given us our all. I hope it's been obvious that I've purposely misused verses. And by the way, Satan is far better at that than I am. But false teachings are a lot like that poisonous Kool-Aid, and too many people are drinking it all up. I encourage you to excel. Choose a path of excellence in Christian living, Matthew 22. To develop the desire to work the Lord's will, Philippians 2, for salvation and securing it because we've been forgiven by the grace of God and our faith in him, with full devotion, 2 Timothy chapter 2, to stand approved before God." Now it was therapeutic to use those verses correctly that time. Back to Proverbs 22:29. The person who excels in his work will stand before kings. You know, I think about standing before the ultimate King of Kings. And that inspires me to do my best in living out the life that God has given me to live. We don't confuse full devotion with perfection. I hope you don't. We don't. But the perfect word should accomplish its purpose in us. We don't confuse works and grace. They're friends. But forgiveness will lead to a changed life. Validated by good works, which prove your faith is genuine. I hope that you choose to give God your all and your very best. I hope that you resolve to be a remarkably devoted Christian, raising the bar for yourself because you love Jesus with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all the energy you've got. The average person doesn't respond to God in faith according to the prescription that he says is provided for you to put him on and be forgiven and to live the life eternally that he provides. I hope that if you need to be in Christ, that you choose to excel and be exceptional by responding to that gospel as we stand and as we sing.